Welcome, history seekers. Today we uncover the bloody truth of the Promised Land's darkest age. Many believe that after Joshua, Israelites lived peacefully in a glorious nation. But historical reality paints a far more terrifying picture of a bloody era. With no central king, tribes fractured. They bowed down to pagan gods, triggering a horrific cycle. Surrounded by ruthless enemies, their only hope lay in flawed warriors destined for brutal war. Ancient historical records often depict a golden era of endless peace and divine blessing. The ancient tribes settled their inherited lands, gladly trading bronze swords for heavy iron plows. Families built stone houses on the hills, expecting a bright future under God's protection. Magnificent golden wheat fields swayed in the wind, promising abundant harvests for generations. Respected elders governed with profound wisdom, while children played safely near the village gates. It was supposedly a sacred time, a beautiful reward for their long desert journey. Yet this romanticized vision is merely a beautiful illusion created by time. The true historical landscape was incredibly harsh, unforgiving, and deeply divided. The Canaanite cities still held massive power, threatening the fragile peace every single day. The 12 tribes remained largely isolated, separated by steep mountains and deep valleys. Without a strong central leadership, the localized conflicts quickly began to escalate.
Stop this madness! They are watching!
The unified national spirit forged in the desert slowly shattered into tribal greed. The people focused entirely on their own survival, forgetting their sacred covenant. A gradual cultural assimilation started, slowly eroding their unique identity. Israelites began to mingle closely with the local inhabitants of the fertile plains. Intermarriage became extremely common, bridging the gap between former fierce enemies. But this dangerous integration carried a heavy and terrifying spiritual price. They slowly abandoned all their rigid laws to embrace the seductive local traditions. The grand illusion of a pure nation completely collapsed under the weight of temptation. The stage was now perfectly set for one of history's most devastating spiritual falls. According to the ancient book of Judges, the new generation forgot the Lord entirely. They completely turned their backs on strict commandments, seeking prosperity from pagan idols. Dark altars dedicated to the storm god Baal were rapidly built upon the highest rocky hills. The wooden poles dedicated to Asherah were erected under the shade of ancient trees.
We invoke the Ancient One.
The people actively engaged in deeply corrupt and highly sensual temple rituals.
Accept this plea.
Heavy incense smoke constantly filled the air, masking the horrible stench of moral decay. To ensure a good harvest, they even resorted to unspeakable, dark, ancient rituals.
Ancient gods.
Countless innocent lives were tragically lost to appease the ruthless and demanding local gods. True justice completely vanished from the land, replaced by immense greed and unforgiving chaos. The sacred and strict laws that once protected the weak were now completely ignored by the strong. The wealthy ruthlessly oppressed the poor, stealing their lands and forcing them into slavery. Travelers were constantly ambushed on the roads, making simple trade incredibly dangerous. Total anarchy reigned supreme, as every man simply did what was right in his own eyes. The tribal leaders became incredibly corrupt, accepting heavy bribes to pervert holy justice. Devastating civil wars occasionally erupted, ending the lives of their own brothers. This massive spiritual rebellion directly provoked the absolute wrath of the Almighty. The divine protection that once shielded them was deliberately and completely withdrawn. The magnificent land of milk and honey quickly transformed into a devastating nightmare. Rival enemy nations sensed the internal weakness and prepared to strike with absolute fury. Fierce nomadic raiders from the eastern deserts regularly swept in like a swarm of locusts. They utterly destroyed the crops, decimated the livestock, and left the people completely starving. The powerful Philistines fiercely marched from the coast, wielding superior iron weaponry. Their highly disciplined armies easily crushed the disorganized Israelite militias. Massive, heavy tribute was forcefully extracted, leaving the once proud tribes in deep poverty. If you were living in this era, would you submit to pagan gods to save your family? The Israelites cried out in terrible agony, desperately begging for divine deliverance. Their sorrowful prayers echoed through the desolate mountains, completely filled with profound regret. However, God did not send them flawless royal kings or holy saints in shining silver armor. Instead, he raised up deeply rough and heavily flawed guerrilla fighters, known as the Judges. These were brutal men and women, perfectly suited for an incredibly brutal and dark age. King Eglon of Moab was a monstrous tyrant who ruthlessly dominated the Israelites. The ancient texts describe him as a morbidly obese man, completely obsessed with absolute power. He forcefully demanded crippling taxes, growing incredibly fat on the people's misery. For 18 long years, the Israelites suffered under his brutally heavy and cruel hand. Then came Ehud, a highly unusual assassin from the small and weakened tribe of Benjamin. He was completely left-handed, a unique trait that gave him a deadly tactical advantage. Ehud secretly forged a heavy, double-edged short sword, carefully strapping it to his right thigh. Because guards only checked the left side, he easily smuggled the weapon into the palace. He brought the heavy tribute to the obese king, securing a private and quiet audience. Claiming to have a secret message from God, Ehud confidently approached the royal throne. Just as the massive royal king stood up in deep respect, Ehud quickly reached out with his left hand. He violently plunged the iron blade deep into the king's incredibly fat and bulging belly. The terrible strike was so incredibly forceful that the handle completely sank into the thick fat. Ehud quietly locked the heavy chamber doors and escaped into the rugged mountainside. By the time the royal guards finally broke in, the Moabite army was fully paralyzed. The Israelites immediately launched a fierce ambush, vanquishing 10,000 enemy soldiers. This bloody and ruthless assassination bought the nation a temporary period of peace. But the tragic cycle quickly repeated, bringing a much deadlier and advanced enemy. The Canaanite general Sisera commanded an army with 900 iron chariots. These heavily armored vehicles were the ultimate superweapons of the ancient world. They easily crushed any infantry rebellion, spreading absolute terror across the plains. During this desperate time, a powerful female prophet named Deborah rose to leadership. She held her primitive royal court under a massive palm tree, judging the oppressed people. Deborah summoned warrior Barak, commanding him to face the terrifying iron chariots.
Given them into your hands.
She brilliantly orchestrated a daring ambush near the shallow waters of the Kishon River. As the heavy Canaanite chariots aggressively charged, a massive and sudden rainstorm hit. The river quickly overflowed, instantly turning the entire battlefield into deep mud. The terrifying iron chariots became completely stuck, turning into useless metal traps. The Israelite guerrilla fighters fiercely rushed down the mountain, vanquishing the trapped enemy men. General Sisera cowardly abandoned his broken army and desperately fled on foot. He sought refuge in the quiet tent of Jael, a seemingly friendly, nomadic woman. She kindly offered him warm milk, lulling the exhausted and terrified general to sleep. But Jael grabbed a heavy tent peg and a hammer, creeping silently toward the sleeping man. With one incredibly brutal strike, she delivered a fatal and decisive blow to end his reign. The great Canaanite oppressor was permanently defeated by a woman's ruthless cunning. These incredibly violent stories completely shatter the myth of a peaceful, holy nation. The era of the Judges was a dark and bloody cycle of constant rebellion and rescue. The people repeatedly fell into dark paganism, suffered greatly, and then cried for help. God consistently responded by providing these highly imperfect but necessary warriors. They were not noble, heroic knights, but desperate fighters, surviving in a brutally savage world. The Promised Land was not a peaceful paradise, but a terrifying geopolitical battlefield. Without a unified government, the vulnerable tribes were constantly preyed upon by empires. Every period of hard-won peace was simply a short breath before the next massive invasion. The lack of a central king forced ordinary citizens to become ruthless guerrilla killers. This intensely brutal 300-year struggle forged the deep resilience of the ancient nation. These legendary historical saviors were deeply flawed warriors fighting against total darkness. The Almighty used completely broken vessels to execute his brutal divine justice. The magnificent sacred soil of the ancient Levant was deeply stained with tragic conflict and ashes. They fought incredibly desperately to prevent the complete extinction of their ancient heritage. Because there was absolutely no king in the land, total anarchy became the new reality. The completely exhausted tribes desperately longed for a righteous leader to unite their nation. However, the terrible cycle of spiritual rebellion always returned to permanently haunt them. This bloody era serves as a terrifying warning about the price of moral decay. Whenever they compromised with pagan evil, complete destruction immediately followed. The mighty guerrilla heroes eventually faded away, leaving the nation vulnerable. A completely new generation would fall, requiring yet another incredibly violent rescue. Very soon, a new judge with unmatched physical strength would rise from the darkest, ancient shadows, a legendary warrior who could easily tear a living lion with his bare hands. He single-handedly vanquished thousands of soldiers using only a donkey's jawbone. But this invincible hero possessed a fatal weakness for the tears of beautiful women. The tragic tale of Samson and Delilah reveals a classic story of dark betrayal. Prepare yourselves for an epic tragedy where unmatched power meets absolute destruction. The dark era of judges proves freedom is never free. It demands a heavy, ultimate sacrifice. If you truly lived in this chaotic time, would you choose dangerous freedom? Drop your thoughts below. If this dark journey thrilled you, please hit the like button. Subscribe for more brutal historical truths.